Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with a Path of Exile build guide. Well, no, not Path of Exile. Let's do that one more time. Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another YouTube build guide. This time for Last Epoch. This is a low-life Ghazimancer, Giga Freezer, Arc Cryo Mage, Ultra Giga Alpha Dog, something like that. I'm just gonna call this Bob the Slapper. He just slaps everything. Okay, that's all he does. It's 1 minion, and he's gonna fuck everything up. Okay, so basically the build is a low life, which means we're focusing on ward. I got 6.7k ward, and this guy does all the damage. It's actually not him doing the damage. He's just delivering the pain, which is all coming from Dreadshade, which is pretty freaking insane. So it's a 1 minion army. That means there's a couple playstyle things that needs to be taken into consideration to not prolong the video for gameplay footage. I'm going to show you some gameplay footage and explain how I'm playing it, and in the descriptions below you'll see a link to this little thing, which is the Elite Build Planner. And the skills I'm using is obviously Summon Skeleton Mage, which is this bad boy. However, you never want to summon him without having Dreadshade ready, and I'm going to show you why. Let's see. Okay, in this area I'm only farming about corruption 300. We have about 350, 400 in the other area that we've been grinding out, and it's not been a problem at all. But let's just head in here. How bad is this modifier? It's gonna hurt, but it should be fine. What's really cool with this build is that you're able to cap your resistances quite easily. You don't have to cap it entirely capped in Last Epoch compared to Path of Exile, but this build makes it rather easy to achieve. So the playstyle is very simple. I'm going to find a pack of enemies to show you how little damage this guy does without having Dreadshade on him. I will curse, and you see that there's like no damage at all. Like, it's sad. It's really sad. Let me show you what happens as soon as I put Dreadshade on him. So this is about 10 to 20 times, if not more damage. So Dreadshade does all the damage. It also makes him have half crit chance for a stupid amount of cast speed. He also gets guaranteed crits after that to counteract that downside. And he doesn't have any decaying of HP with it, but also increased duration. And this is combined with the 18-second cooldown. This means that my cooldown's ready, but he still has Dreadshade on him. This allows me to make sure that he always have Dreadshade active at all times. However, since he doesn't, since we don't have the availability to teleport him to us, because we never want to use the skeleton without having Dreadshade ready to put on him, we need to make sure that we are always using 1 minion. Now, this means that when we're running around clearing, we want to make sure that he is as fast as possible. Therefore, we're going to use Infernal Shade, and Infernal Shade will be killing him inevitably. However, I put Dreadshade up, or Infernal Shade up, and I will then reapply Dreadshade after every now and then. It will reset the amount of damage he's taking per second from the Infernal Shade, allowing me to keep up by using the A key, and then reapplying the Infernal Shade to avoid him taking too much damage per second, and still maintaining that sweet ass buff that he's getting, the extra speed. Most of the cases, the movement speed is the most important aspect of the Infernal Shade, and which is really crazy because it gives a lot of damage, but the Infernal Shade allows me to be in a position where he is fast enough for me to run around and have a comfortable clearing experience without having him be teleported with the Grave Passage nodes, for example. So this is how the build's played. With proper gearing, it does a stupid amount of damage. I do want to point out that you should not be leveling with this build, because you need Dreadshade to make this thing happen where he actually deals this much damage. So with that stated, as you can see, I'm recasting Infernal Shade every now and then. Otherwise, he will inevitably die. Obviously, in single target boss fights, I leave Infernal Shade up consistently, because the longer it's up, the more damage it does, and he can self-sustain with leeching versus bosses, but not when clearing. So I think the point out is that you can't level with this, so I would recommend using anything from regular skeletons, skeleton mages, to adding especially volatile zombies are really good to level with. And then once you have 30 points into the necromancer tree, just go ham, switch over to this build if you'd like. Why am I running up here? Because I'm thinking it's the campaign. It's over there. So that's basically the way I played it, the way I leveled it. You don't have any mandatory uniques to make this build run. You don't have any mandatory items whatsoever that needs to be played to make this work. The skill tree is pretty straightforward. It's very easy to understand. And it's just a comfortable build. This is a corruption 300-ish, 297, I think. What is it? 298 area. And it's just chill. So let me show you the planner. So in the planner, you'll have all the information you need. Obviously, on the left-hand side, you can generate a loot filter for the build. I'm going to keep this very short. I'm not going to go into too much detail, such as talking about where to put the passive points. Thank you for the €10 donation. So anyways, I'm not going to put the go into depth with this because in the link to the description you'll find all the information you need. I will point out some minor things. Obviously, you don't have to spend 27 points in here. I would recommend just spending the points you need to get the Infernal Shade and then moving on, or in my case, just spend the points you need to get to the Necromancer, then save your nodes, put everything else in the Necromancer to get the Dread Shade ASAP. However, I will say this though: skip the Lich node till you're level 90. If you're having issues with keeping the skeleton alive, make sure you have 5 points in this node. And the way you can skip that later is if you have 2 extra levels of your skeleton mages from your relic, which is not that hard to achieve. Other than that, that's it. That's it, actually. So other than that, just follow the passives. Take the Lich nodes for the last 10 levels. It's really it. When it comes to the idols, we're going to run 4 grand idols, giving you minion cold damage. If you want to be very picky about this, you'd like to have less damage taken over time. But if you have any necessity for resistances, which you really shouldn't, then having those would be fine. It's going to be 2 1 slaughter Lagonian idols, which gives you ward retention and HP, and the other 3 will be double life roll Lagonian stout idols. That's basically it. So when it comes to the gearing, Jura's Obsession is the last piece you want to add. They give tons of resistances depending on the role. Void Rest is always going to be pretty reasonable. Then there's a big difference on the Cold or Lightning Rest. Spell damage, and then you get the LP on it. You can put cast speed. You can put Frailty to get you tankier and stuff like that. Chronostasis, very easy to get. You will simply just purchase from the gambling vendor, which is located about around here in the End of Time, and then you will use Rune of Ascendance. You will get tons of these. It's very common. I finally had an LP one. The reason we use this, I'll explain this together with the chest and boots in a bit. The amulet Death Rattle, very common since we are always critting. This is an insanely strong unique amulet. However, if you look at the the last Epoch tools, you can hover over the item, and in the bottom of this it says timeline to target farm, the Age of Winter. You're looking for nodes called unique or set amulets. Very important to point out because the offhand, chest, and our boots will be farmed in the same freaking area. Jura's Obsession is from the Sanctum Key, Temporal Sanctum Dungeon. The helmet's very straightforward. Just ward retention would be the best base helmet. Any skeletal damage, intelligence. Intelligence is like the name of the game here, by the way. Belt, we just go minion damage, minion life, hybrid health, and percent health. Rings, we go for minion damage, intelligence as prefixes, and one of them needs to have a critical strike avoidance because we're going to get the remaining crit strike avoidance from the blessing from Reign of Dragons. The other ring is just going to have intelligence and minion damage, and then the suffix is going to be health. I've left one suffix open on one of the rings here because, again, we're already capped in our defensive stats. If I can see that here somewhere. That's right here, actually. We're already capped. You don't need to cap poison, and I still have a suffix open and no LP gear, so it's very easy to cap your rest if you so want to. The level of skeletal mages, it needs to be tier 5 to get 2 levels. Tier 4 gives +1. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit real quick when it comes to the rune bones. So the skills, like I said, with the passives, I'm not going to talk too much about them. The Skelly Mages, what you'll do when you get 2 extra points is to put them both into Grey Merchants. The reason for this is crit multi is just straight up damage, but it gives you a maximum health gained on crit. And like I mentioned before that, if you need help surviving, have your skeleton survive better, you'll put 2 extra points in here and take them away from heresy instead, because you don't get anything for the critical strike chance. So these points are only intelligence. The intelligence from the Apocrypha is actually better than these 4 points in here. So these will be the last ones, but these are going to be the second last anyways. So again, you'll put them in here. Before that, you want to make sure that once you have access to Dread Shade, you want to put yourself into the Archmage. You want to go through this point here and get 2 points in Osane Frenzy. Get the Cryomancer. Also make sure you pick up Frost Lich. After that, just fill in the nodes. I would start with these 2 because of the extra projectiles as well as the attack and cast speed is very important. Dread Shade, basically skip these 4 points early and just rush down to Lone Watcher and make sure you pick up the Blind Fury, and then make sure you get these 2. Once you have that, you're going to be kicking ass and taking names for a living. Infernal Shade, you need to pick up so it applies to minions, then the haste for more comfortable clearing and unlimited duration, and just reapply it as you're lovely using it for clearing. Manic Pyre for speed, and then the ignition if you want the mana cost efficiency. The duration doesn't do anything, but we use those 2 points like this to get to the brimstone for the slow chance on enemies. Outside of that, Bone Curse, we have this for brittle bones for kill threshold, and the ruptured corpses for explosions. That's the first points you're gonna rush to. The reason for this is we can apply them to a pack of enemies, and the projectiles from our skeleton doesn't always hit everything, so therefore some enemies will explode and you'll get some better clearing that way. After you got in that, you're gonna rush down, skipping this pack here, go straight up for Sigil of Mortality so you get marked for death, and then just fill out the rest from there. Transplant really doesn't matter. It's just a quality of life teleport thingy. So go down, go for the fear nodes, and then choose whichever side you want to start with. It really doesn't matter. So once I've gotten this far on this little guide, I'm going to try to keep this shorter if I can. What's really important to point out is how the defensive layers actually work. Now, the body armor, for example, it has 20% of current health lost per second, 20% missing health gained as ward per second. And this is a chest piece you farm in Blood, Frost, and Death Zone from the unique set and body armor places, or echoes. You can get Shroud of Obscurity instead, which looks like this. It's a super common chest piece, both of them for that matter, and you can use the Shroud of Obscurity to start with once you want to go low life. Not a necessity, not mandatory whatsoever, but I prefer it with this build because of how valuable intelligence is. So once you get the Shroud or an Exsanguinous, that's perfect. The boots themselves is really cool because these boots, they drop from 50% drop rate from the actual boss in that very same area. Same thing goes for Lich's Scorn. The offhand has a random chance from the boss in that very same area. So basically all 3 items that are scaling your intelligence and going low life drops from the same freaking zones. It's very easy to farm the gear for this character. The boots have the same modifier where you have current health lost per second and current missing health gain as wards. How does this work? You see my HP is 2212 right now, but I have 88 HP. Now, the reason for this is very simple. That is because my current life regeneration, I have 18 vitality actually, allows me to have a little bit of life regen, but the degen from my uniques is degenerating 8% of my current health. Because of this, I am then in a position where my HP lands at 88. So if I take 88, I now see that I have 2124 HP that I have missing. Both of my items, this one's actually rolled at 13%, that's 20, so that is 0.33. So 33% of my missing health is then regenerated as ward per second. So I'm gaining 700.92 ward per second simply because of my missing health. So that's why we want to have gear pieces such as the health on our gear across the board. Like my belt doesn't even have hybrid health, but as an example, you want to have HP where you can. Chronostasis is another weapon that applies ward now, and that is 74 ward. Because we don't really need the damage from our weapon, you'll get that from an LP version of it to get minion spell damage. And in this case, we are then regenerating 775 ward per second. So the way ward works is that it cannot be covered by endurance, if you wondered. However, the ward retention, which we're getting from some nodes on the tree, and the intelligence provides ward as well, works in a way where it reduces the rate the ward decays. And the ward decay functions in a way that the more ward you have, the faster ward you will decay, which means that you can't have tons and tons and tons and tons of wards without heavy investments to it. This means that with my current state of ward regenerated per second that I have right now, combined with my current ward retention, I am actually getting a max amount of 6,730 ward with my current state of gear. However, if I were to use a life flask in my current state, because the next upgrade for me is to get a legendary potential chance of roller rolls, which will make me lose some damage, but I can use this to use potions to give me ward. This is a later step which I'm about to get into on my character in game right now. Beforehand, if I use a flask, I will lose life, and that is because my HP goes up, so that my unique items will degen that HP. But since my missing health is now lower, my ward per second that I'm gaining is then lower, and therefore I'm going to click the flask once, you'll see my ward go down. And then as my HP goes down and it hits the breaking point where it's going to go back up again, you'll see that the ward retention is now bringing my ward up again. Now I'm going to show this with full flask, and I'm going to show you how crazy fast the ward is going to go up at first, and as soon as my HP goes down. You see how fast this is going up? But as sooner or closer I get to the max ward I have, the slower the ward regeneration is, simply because now it is fighting against that ward decay. So this build basically sustains by having a ton of ward, and the bigger hit I take, the faster I will regenerate that damage taken. And then as I move closer to my max amount of EHP, then the slower I will regenerate. So essentially, whenever I get hit, it's just as if I used a potion for the build. This will obviously be better when we have Chains of Olros. So just going to keep that in mind, that the build might seem tanky. It just is able to take very big hits. And then you can't take a big hit till you've gotten that region up. That's how it works. And using a potion, as you've seen, is actually a modifier that will lower your HP. So that's not always good to use. So keep that in mind when you're playing this in the initial steps, which is where I'm at right now. So what I tried to do is actually in the start, especially when I had Shroud of Obscurity, was that I cleansed my potions. I used all of them before I went into a map, and I just tried to not step on the potions. Really isn't that big of a deal, but that's how I did it. I think I covered everything except for blessings. Now, blessings, the mandatory blessings, I would say, is go for Void Rest from the Black Sun, helps out with gearing. Go for Lightning Rest in Ending Storm, helps with gearing. Guaranteed that I don't think any build would not do Critical Strike Avoidance from Rain of Dragons. You need to cap that, so you need to make sure you have the blessing and a modifier on your gear from at least one gear piece to make sure you hit 100% or more. We'll be using physical resistance from Age of Winter. This build doesn't have a lot of armor, so fist resistance cap is extremely important, and fist damage is probably one of the weakest point of this build, so keep that in mind as well. And obviously we'll do medium damage on the Spirits of Fire. All the other ones are just drop related bullshit, so just take whatever the fuck you want. That's basically it. It's very straightforward. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And this video was recorded during a goddamn subathon, and now I'm gonna play some more Last Epoch because I love this game. Till next time, stay safe, keep rocking.